My friends, it's good to see you. I'm here tonight, going to be talking to Rich Roll. Um, Super excited. We're going to turn the tables on this guy. All right, you guys know Rich Roll, the host of the Rich Roll podcast, the author of Finding Ultra, and now his latest book, Voicing Change. So we're going to interview Rich and see what he has to say about his brand new book, Voicing Change, that just came out, and this is a fantastic Christmas gift, or you should get it for yourself, honestly. Rich Roll, how are you, my
What's up,
friends?
dude? How you doing?
Good to see you, man. You doing all right?
Good to see you. Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Everything's good here.
Your beard
Nice
is
to
in
see
good
you. We
shape.
still
You're
haven't
it's
met in person. Yeah,
I
my
know.
COVID beard.
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm doing really well, man. I'm very excited to talk to you tonight about your new book, Voicing Change. This to me is a book that makes for a great low-key Friday night or a Sunday morning when you just are like, you got your feet up and you're listening to your podcast and you're just flipping through and checking out some of the classic guests that you've had on your show. Um, so tell me, Rich, we're going to turn the tables on you here. You've had quite a life, man. Swimmer, attorney, quit your
Mhm.
job, author, started a podcast. I mean, who do you see when you look in the mirror?
I still see that that 10-year-old kid. It's funny. I mean, I think that growth and change is often reflected by the people around you. I know that in my own case, I've gone through phases of growth in my life, and I don't feel any different, and I don't know that I'm behaving any differently. And it's only in interactions with other people where they say, "Oh wow, you look different," or you seem lighter, in your shoes, or you seem more clear-eyed." And it's always news to me. It's only over larger periods of time that you can really gauge that growth. And I've been that person for other people too, like where I work with somebody, and then over time they're not even aware of how much they've changed or they've grown. And that's been the case with me. And I think with the book, that's been an opportunity for me to reconnect with the journey that I've been on with this podcast over the last 8 years, because I just move forward. I'm like, who's the next guest? What am I doing? Like, I don't spend a lot of time reflecting back on what it all means, or how I got to this place. And the book really gave me the opportunity to kind of inhabit that, to like marinate in what this journey has meant for me, and for so many other people out in the world.
Yeah, the book is really a celebration of the show. And
Hmm.
I mean, did you ever think that this would be the case, that you would have this monster show, all these guests, these brilliant people? Like, when did you ever think this was going to
No,
happen?
no, not in a million years. I mean, when I began the podcast 8 years ago, that space was very different than what it looks like now, and it was really just um, something fun to do. Like I gathered a couple microphones from my sons who are musicians, and I was like, Julie, let's just do a conversation and see what a podcast is like. Like I didn't know whether there would be a second episode. It was really just something, a creative experiment and having fun. And I enjoyed it. And I thought, well, let's do that again tomorrow. Like that was cool. And what has become of all of that, I could have never predicted in a million years. And it certainly is not the product of some goal that I set for myself, or, some vision that I held. It was really a function of really just falling in love with the process of talking to people, various different kinds of people that inspire me in different ways, and just an external kind of reflection or manifestation of my continued commitment to trying to grow in new and different ways, and bringing people on, that I want to learn from, for my own selfish purposes, and then sharing that. And to the extent that it's become what it's become, I'm as baffled and amazed as anybody out there, but certainly very grateful. And it just makes me all the more committed to, trying to get better at this, and to be, committed to, finding the best people who can be, the teachers that we all need in the world right now.
When did you know that you had something? When did you feel like there was an
here.
energy to the show? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Rich?
Yeah, froze up there for a second, but repeat that if you could.
Yeah. When did you realize that there was an energy, that people were really attaching themselves to the show? When did you realize that there was something here that was taking off?
Well, I will say that when I began the show in 2012, it was not the competitive environment that it is now. And the show very quickly, distinguished itself, high in the kind of, iTunes algorithm, because there was nobody else kind of doing anything all that compelling in the health and wellness space. So I was able to kind of get a foothold and develop a small audience. I mean, maybe 1,000 people listened to the first handful of episodes, but for me, that was like massive. Like, that was probably the biggest inflection point, that there was even an interest or an appetite at all for anything that I had to say, because I had no experience talking behind a microphone. I'm not a journalist or any of those kinds of things. So that was probably the biggest indication that perhaps, this could be something. But after that, it's really just been a very gradual kind of organic, growth curve. There hasn't been any giant, sort of viral inflection points where I thought, oh my God, this thing is huge. It's just year after year, it just kind of steps up. And, after 8 years, that compounds over time, and you wake up and you realize, wow, there's a lot of people watching the show or listening to the show.
Has it gotten more complicated for you, or gotten easier as you've gone on?
A little of both. It's more complicated in the sense that I now have people that help me. Like, I've got a team of people, and there's more infrastructure around it, rather than just me flipping on a mic and throwing it up myself. So, I'm managing people and trying to create, a team environment that's, encouraging to the people that I work with. So that's, I had no experience like managing people either. So it's like running a business is like a new aspect of it that definitely complicates it a little bit. And also with the scale that it's at right now, like I try to be really conscious of the people that I'm choosing to have on the show, rather than just, whoever happens to like email me, which was certainly, in the early days, it was all about who can I convince or hoodwink to come on this show. Like, I had to beg, just to get people to do a podcast, because no one even knew what a podcast was or had no understanding of why they would do one. Now it's very much the opposite. Like, I'm getting pitched constantly, and it's not hard to get people to come on the show. It's too easy to get people on the show. So it's about curating the show and trying to figure out who is the, not the biggest person, but who's the right person for what I'm trying to communicate.
Yeah. And it seems, so guys, real quick, the book is called Voicing Change. You can see it right here. Beautiful book. It looks great on a coffee table. You can flip it through. It's got these wonderful photos. It's hard to see, but you can see there's my friend Robin Chuckin, and
yeah,
it's a dream team talking about some of the great guests that have been on the Rich Roll show. So you guys, you're going to want to check this out. You can go to Rich's website to order your copy. But gosh, you've had so many incredible guests. I want to talk to you about some of these people. Like the David Goggins episode, was that one of the biggest episodes you've had? I mean, that was huge.
Well, the interesting thing about David, now he's like a household name, and he's kind of this, massive, icon of inspiration and motivation. What's interesting about David is that, in endurance circles, like, we've all known David or known of David, for many years, dating back to like 2006, 2007, when he first began competing in all these races. So within that subculture, he had a name, and he was somebody that, I was curious about and wanted to have on the show for quite some time. And we made that happen a couple of years ago. And I don't know if it was the first podcast that he did, but it was the first kind of one of scale that he had done. And I thought it was a great conversation, but I underestimated how much impact that episode would have. Like, people really just went crazy for it.
Yeah.
And I think that was, for David, that was also, I think, an encouragement for him that his message had, value. I'd like to think that it played a tiny, tiny part in, I encouraged him in that original one. I was like, you got to write a book, and so then he writes this book and it becomes huge. And then he came and did the show again, did Rogan, and like now he's doing, commercials for the NFL. Like, it's unbelievable, but it's very gratifying. Like, I think for me, it's not just having David on. It's like when I can find these people that I think are deserving of having their voice amplified and like playing a small part in that amplification before they kind of tip over that inflection point. And that was what was, kind of really cool about the first podcast that I did with David.
Yeah, it seems like that's one of the big themes within the book. I mean, look, there are some huge celebrities that you've had on your show. I'm looking at a photo of Edward Norton right here, and there you go, guys. You can see that. But I mean, that's one of the big themes of the book here is that you're taking people who have a message that they want to share, and we're living in this time. Rich, talk to us about how we're living in this time where there's critical choices that we need to make. And we're trying to find information. How are we supposed to go about this, Rich? When it feels like there's so much misinformation out there, how do you go about it as the host?
I mean, I really go about it on feel at this point. Like, I've learned to trust my instincts and my intuition about people, and that doesn't mean that I always get it right. But I have kind of a list of people that are in the back of my mind, or I have like a Google Doc with like names of people, like when I come across them, thinking that would be a good person. And sometimes it takes a year or 2 years before I can make that happen. So it's kind of a, pardon the pun, but it's like a gut thing. It's like I trust my gut, and because I've been doing this for so long, I've learned, I've developed some confidence about those choices that I make. But I think your point is well taken and important. We live in a media saturated culture. It's not a question of, if something is out there, it's like there's just too much, right? So how do you find the signal in the noise, especially in a culture, of fake news and kind of intentionally misleading information, weaponized social media, and the kind of acrimony and divide that we're all living through right now in the wake of this really insane election cycle. And so what I try to do is just try to I try to vet everybody that I have on, and that doesn't mean that I'll have people on that I disagree with, as long as I feel like it can be productive. And I try to be that signal in the noise, and to try to engender trust with the audience, so they know when they tune in that that this is somebody worthy of their attention. Because I'm asking a lot of the audience. If I have a 2-hour, I'm asking somebody to give me 2 hours, sometimes 4 hours out of their week. Who else? It's like, and if I'm going to ask that of them, then I better deliver or over deliver. And when I look at the calendar for the year, I have that gives me 52 slots, for the year, one a week. Who are those 52 people going to be? And I don't take that, that's not a trivial decision for me. So when people email me and they're like, hey, can I jump on your podcast? It's like, no, like, to have on is a important decision, because, my respect for the audience can't be tainted by, a friendship or, anything else.
Do you feel like that's what really motivates you to maintain the high standards that you have for your show, is really the respect for the audience? I mean, is that what it is for you?
It's a combination of respect for the audience, but also, allegiance to my own curiosity. Like, if I'm not curious about the person, or I don't feel inside of me like, a pull to that individual and what they have to share, then it's probably not going to be a great episode. And it doesn't mean they're not a great guest or don't have important things to impart, but I'm probably not the right host for that person. And I've made the mistake in the past of listening to the peanut gallery when they're like, hey, you should have this person on, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, maybe, but everyone seems to say so, I'll have them on, and it's just flat, because I have to lead with my own, my own kind of, emotional connection to that person. And for me, that, trying to develop that emotional connection and that bond is really important, and something that I think is, at least with what I do, of paramount importance. That's why, Zoom and stuff like this is tricky for me, because I really need to like feel their energy, and I feel like that connection is almost more important than whatever information they have to impart, because I think the audience can feel that, and if they can feel that, then they're connected emotionally, and they're more able to like hear whatever it is that the person, is trying to communicate.
Yeah, man. No, I'm with you. I feel like Zoom, it's incredible to me how you can look a person in the eye the exact same way through Zoom or through, social media, and it doesn't feel the same as when you're in the room talking to a real human being, and there's just no replacing that. It's one of the flaws that we have in our current way of life. Rich, what was your motivation
and
for the
yet,
book?
here we are.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, sorry. This is to your point. It's like the lag with the Instagram Live.
Right.
Yeah, it's this. At the same time, we're in a pandemic, and so we're all kind of using these devices and these tools, and they have their value. I'm trying to acclimate it and to adjust and get with the times. But to answer your question, I wrote the book, really as a love letter to the audience, and also to a love letter to all the guests that I've had, and it's really intended to be kind of a composite, like a cross section, like a good representation of the kind of people that inspire me, curated, to be as diverse as possible, to give you a good taste of, what the show is all about. And it's packaged in a very aesthetically pleasing and kind of modern veneer in this coffee table format. And that's on purpose. Like I wanted to be able to, it's almost like a Trojan horse. The idea is like, oh, you come for the photographs because it's filled with beautiful photographs. But what really, really like locks you in is the wisdom of all of these guests. So we went through all the guests and, picked out, like I said, a cross section of 50 of them. We transcribed all the podcasts. We tried to, excerpt the most potent and powerful things that these people had to say, and I have introductory thoughts and comments on all of them, and some guests contributed essays, so you can pick it up and look at any page and enjoy it. And I really do feel like it's a book that you could put out on your coffee table for somebody who has no idea who I am or what I do. I think it's it's also like a good introduction to my world.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really cool about it is the diversity of the different guests that you've had on the show, and how the book really represents that. You're just like jumping all over the place, all kinds of different types of people.
Mm-hmm. You broke up there a
Sorry
little
about
bit.
that, Rich. Yeah, no, I just think it's really cool how you have all different types of people. You have Guru Singh, you have Zach Bush, you have you have a mix of medical doctors, you have actors, actresses, athletes. Tell us about who are some of your favorite guests that you've had on the show through the years?
Yeah, sure. So, whoops, I'm having like, it's fun to have the kind of well-known, high-profile celebrity people. I mean, it's super exciting to like interview or sit down and have a conversation with someone like Ed Norton or Russell Brand. I mean, those are like pinch me moments. It's super cool. But I think, hearkening back to something I said earlier, like the guests that end up being like really gratifying for me are the ones that are less well-known, but so deserving of, having their story told. And being like able to be a cipher for the world and like say, hey, I found this person and like I think they have something amazing to say, and then to see the audience like realize that or like connect with that is really cool. Like that just happened like a week ago. I had this guy Hakeem Tafari on the show who is hardly, a household name. And he was just so full of wisdom. I met him not very long ago, and I just thought, this guy's unbelievable. Like, why does nobody know who this guy is? Like, you got to come on my podcast and share your story. And that episode was like, it blew people's minds. And that's super cool. Or somebody like, Josh LaJohnny, who's been on the show a couple times. The guy, lives in southern Louisiana, and he lost, over 200 pounds and reinvented himself as an ultra runner. And he's just a beautiful soul. Like, people like that, it's super fun for me to have those people on. John McAvoy would be another one in that category. Somebody who was serving a life sentence as a bank robber, and got parole and came out into the world and reinvented himself as an Ironman athlete, and is an advocate for prison reform. Like, just all different kinds of stories of people doing amazing things a little bit more anonymously than I think they should be.
What's it like, Rich, what's it like behind the scenes on the show? Give us an idea of the amount of effort that goes into one of these episodes. How much research are you doing for an episode? How much time are you spending with the guest?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it depends on the guest, honestly. I can have a buddy of mine who I've known my whole life on the show, and I don't really have to prepare, and I have a pretty good sense of what I want to talk to them about. But more often than not, it's pretty extensive. I mean, a lot of the guests I have, like yourself, they have books, so I read the book, or I do my very best to read as much of it as possible. If they've been on other podcasts, I'll try to pop in and listen to one or two of those. And then, I open up 20 tabs on my browser and do a deep dive into whatever, articles they've written or press that has covered them. And I make an outline and, kind of crystallize my thoughts on the subject matters that I want to discuss with them. And then I put it all aside. Like, I do all that, and then I trust the preparation that I've done, and I try to not be wed to it, because I think it's important to be present for the conversation and allow it to be what it wants to be. And, I'll have my notes in the case that, I just completely lose my train of thought. But that's really as a crutch. And I think also I've learned that it's important to not be too prepared also. I think if you're too prepared, then you already kind of know the answer to every question you might ask, and it robs you and the audience of what it feels like to be a little bit surprised, and what that might, bring up in your mind that will lead you down a different path of things you're curious about.
So what's the future for the show look like? It sounds like you got a new studio that's brewing. Tell us about where things are going from here on with the Richroll Show.
Yeah, so we are moving into a new studio pretty soon that we've been building out during this COVID period, which is super exciting. I've always done the show in my house, and then when the pandemic hit, we kind of had to, it wasn't responsible to have people coming over, so we moved it to a makeshift kind of temporary situation, and that just made it all the more kind of obvious that it needed its own dedicated space if it wanted to continue to grow. So we got this warehouse. I'm really excited about it. It's going to allow us to have everybody that I work with in one place, which will allow us to do more and be able to produce more efficiently and more quickly. And I think over time will allow us to scale beyond my show to perhaps do more interesting types of productions. But at its core, the show's not going to change. I want to maintain, what's essential to it, which is that intimacy and that kind of emotional connection. And I think the fear with growth is that you lose what made it great in the first place. And so I'm very protective to make sure that, that does, remain intact. And, I do the show for the sake of doing the show. I'm not doing it so that it leads me somewhere else. It's just incredibly gratifying that I get to do it at all. And there's no vision beyond it other than trying to ensure that I make the right move so I can continue to do it. I mean, with the exception that this year I was planning on taking the podcast on the road and doing a multi-city tour. We were going to do these live events across the country. We did one in LA right, before the pandemic, and it was super successful. So obviously that got, shelved for the year, but if and when we can kind of move beyond, what we're dealing with right now, that's something that I definitely want to revive.
Yeah, gosh, that would be so, that would be really fun. I think we're all craving something like that right now, you know? So, yeah, I look forward to the day
Yeah,
that we
just to
can
be
get
able to
back to that.
get together. Yeah,
Oh,
for
totally. Well,
sure.
and you've done all those, you've had retreats that you've done, overseas that obviously you've had to put on hold, right?
Yeah. Every year we take a group of people um, to this villa in Italy. It's like 40 people for like an intimate, 7-day experience of like food and meditation and trail running and, kind of, a lot of intense work too, but a lot of fun. That's something I look forward to every year that obviously, we couldn't do this year either.
Yeah. Nice, man. All right. So, guys, the book is called Voicing Change. It's available at the Richroll website. Strongly recommend you grab yourself a copy and you gift it to a friend for Christmas. Makes a fantastic gift. Rich, any closing thoughts that you want to share with us about the book?
I'm having a connectivity issue here, but if I think I
Yeah,
heard
sorry,
you,
man.
that's all right. So, yeah, I mean, before we sign off, I do want to say that if you have not listened to the good Dr. B on the podcast, you should definitely check that out. We were already like well into production on the book when we did that podcast, but the idea with this book is we're going to be doing annual volumes of it. So I'm sure you'll be able to find Will in a future rendition of the book, perhaps next year. But I appreciate you having me on, man, and it means a lot to me. So thank you.
Oh man, it's all my pleasure. And you know what? Honestly, it will make for a much better encounter when you and I get to be in the same place at the same time, as opposed to connecting
Yeah,
over Zoom and stuff like that. So, but anyway, I'm so happy for
for
you
sure.
with this book. You did your memoir, Finding Ultra. You gave us recipes with Plant Power Way Italia, and now we get to really bask in a lot of the great moments that you've had through 8 years of the Rich Roll podcast with this book. That's what this is about. So,
Mm-hmm.
guys, grab your copy. Grab your copy. Rich, thank you, man. And
Thank you.
yeah, man, it's incredible. So, congratulations on it.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. And yes, we will do a podcast and hang out as soon as it's safe to travel and be together. That's a promise.
All right, my friend. You take care. Have a great night. You guys grab Voicing Change. It's at the Rich Roll website. Go there now.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. You tuned in. Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Will.